Good day, ladies and gentlemen. It is often said that all good things come to those who wait, and it is often said that patience is a virtue. When it comes to the Aliens franchise, those two statements are rather apt. Today, ladies and gentlemen, after 7 years of waiting, today I'm finally going to review the masterpiece that is Alien Isolation.
Alien Isolation was developed by Creative Assembly and published by Sega in the far-off days of 2014. This game was to be different from all the other Aliens games that had come before, in that it was to be an Alien game rather than just an Aliens game. Just about everything set in the Alien universe expands from Aliens, meaning everything is set 57 years after the events of the first film, and every game except this one has been set in the Aliens time period. What's actually really funny here is the fact that this primitive 4-bit game could be considered a call forward to Alien Isolation in some ways.
No, I am not insane. Well, I'm not making that bit up. Trust me.
In all the other Alien/Aliens-based games, you generally either play as Ellen Ripley or a reasonable Space Marine. Here, you play as Ellen Ripley's daughter, Amanda. This came out of the proverbial left field since we all knew that she was old and dead. And we never knew that she did anything other than being old and dead.
And for all we know, that picture that Burke showed Ripley in Aliens could have been a fake.
Alien Isolation's gameplay is inspired from a variety of old and new survival horror-styled games. You have inventory management and the save system from Resident Evil. You have the first-person perspective and the overall atmosphere from more modern games such as Amnesia: The Dark Descent and Outlast. And you have an ability to fight back, which ties into earlier Aliens games, but unlike those Aliens games, you are not a one-man powerhouse fighting through hordes of xenomorphs.
The game can be logically divided into 3 different elements: exploration, stealth, and combat.
All 3 gameplay types are balanced to one another, and you will at times find yourself doing all 3 at the same time. The game is set upon Sevastopol Station. This is a giant space station that suspiciously looks like the oil refinery that the Nostromo was hauling in the first film. This station is falling apart due to lack of investment and lack of money for upkeep, and the foul xenomorph has certainly not helped either. Navigating the station is a gameplay challenge in and of itself. There are never any bright, shiny arrows pointing the way, and like in Metroid, easier paths will be blocked to you unless you have the proper tool. Your first navigational tool is the Humble Space Wrench. This can be used to open shortcuts and do the bashy bashy. You then get a cutting torch that looks remarkably like the one in Aliens. This will get you through a few more doors here and there, but more often than not, you will see this.
Urge to kill rising.
Oh yes, that thrice Sigmar-dabbed Ion Torch upgrade needed message will cause thee enough rage to melt through 1,000 locks. Once you get the Ion Torch, you will be opening paths up with wild abandon. Finding shortcuts and alternate paths will be the difference between life and death.
Because in this game, you have the armor class of Pants, and you're being chased by a beast that puts the fear of Talos into the bloody Tarrasque.
This is a stealth game of the highest order imaginable. For one, you actually have places to hide, and for another, you can potentially defend yourself.
I say again, potentially. Think Piet versus Königstiger.
In this game, you face 3 different enemy factions. Each is dangerous in their own way, and each will require cunning and guile to face down, as, once again, your armor class is Pants. You got your Space Madness-infected humies that will shoot you on sight, and they're actually quite accurate, and their shots hurt. You can shoot the lot of them, but you will never have enough ammo, and they have the potential to do damage to you, and since this is a survival horror game, you have a health bar and very limited health packs. Your best bet, like with all the preceding enemies, is to use stealth, or let Big Zim have his way with them. Sick 'em, Big Zim! Cut 'em up good!
Well, my name just got higher on the watch list.
You then face Working Joes. These are Wish.com quality androids made on the super cheap. Thus, they both look and sound creepy. And they are completely and totally relentless. And they will absolutely not stop until you are dead. And they also take numerous hits to kill.
In a game of the bloody Xenomorph, it took considerable skill to make an enemy only a few notches less scary.
Like the Xenomorph, the Working Joe is a true horror enemy. You will never be able to kill them easily, and you will often be better off just hiding and sneaking past, thus making encounters with them rather tense affairs.
The Xenomorph, on the other hand, is absolutely positively terrifying. Yeah, not gonna lie, I jumped at that.
As a native Texan with a healthy knowledge of personal defense, few horror enemies really frighten me, cause Kalash versus many of them is akin to Ant Boot. The one enemy/horror icon that has actually given me nightmares is the Xenomorph. The Predator is no big deal. I once had a dream where I fought one with a fireplace poker and won. My Xenomorph nightmares were decidedly less pleasant. The Xenomorph is a relentless organism that knows no pity or fear and absolutely will not stop until you are dead or impregnated with a chestburster, which is even worse. It's faster and stronger than a human. Its hide is bulletproof, so that even if you get a chance to shoot the bastard, you'd better have some AP rounds, otherwise he is going to laugh at intermediate caliber rounds. But most of that is completely moot because the thing will likely be smart enough to stealth kill you anyway. The Xenomorph design is literally fear incarnate and is, in my opinion, the single scariest creature ever put to film. And now you are stuck on a space station with it and you have not a single means to kill it. Thus, we enter the stealth aspect of the game. You have to hide from all manner of enemies if you wish to survive, and the game will give you all the tools you need to do just that. You are given a motion tracker, and this will give you the approximate location of your objective and of your enemies. This thing is your best friend in the game, but be wary. The enemies can and will hear it if you are too close to them, so don't leave it out too much. The game will usually give you a place to hide from the Xenomorph, but hiding is, as the loading screens would say, only ever a temporary solution. The game expects you to time when you can evade the Xeno or other enemies instead of just waiting for them to wander off. You will eventually be able to learn what the Xeno can and cannot do and adjust your tactics accordingly. Just always remember that you are prey and that you will never be able to stand toe-to-toe with the bastard. And thus, this ratchets up the tension to a point that I have seldom felt, and I actually felt myself getting scared on occasion, something no other game has been able to achieve. There are multiple save stations located around the station, usually in safer areas, but never in completely safe ones, and if you try and save at the wrong time, you will be killed. Unlike in Resident Evil 1, you don't have to use a consumable item, but you do have to wait a few seconds to save, and at times, this will be very nerve-wracking indeed. This is due to how much gameplay can be lost between each save. There are no quick saves, and there are no auto saves either, so you can potentially lose up to 10 to 20 minutes of gameplay if you cannot make it to a save station.
You know you've got a masterpiece when even saving the game is fun.
Everything in the game is done in real time, meaning that you will need to be aware of your surroundings when you operate machines or hack doors with your hacking tool. This thing gives you a little minigame to complete in real time, and matching these symbols will really get you anxious when you hear that Xenomorph banging about. Like in Deus Ex, you have to input codes into keypads and computers, and unlike in the modern Deus Ex games, you have to remember the code, as it is not just displayed on the screen for you, making even putting in a bloody code exciting. The real-time system accentuates the overall horror atmosphere and never gives the player a moment's respite. One annoying aspect of the gameplay, though, is the fact that it seldom explains what to do. Like with these little mini-games, what the hell am I looking at here? I never figured this out and just restarted the minigame until I got something that made bloody sense. I get that this is more immersive, but seriously, a hint would be nice.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the least used aspect of the gameplay, the combat.
You at least get the option to fight back, even if that option is kind of useless. You get a space revolver with Sweet Sigmar. Is that a Glock rear sight on a revolver?
Unclean! Unclean! Thou shalt not spread the sickness that is the Glock rear sight.
The revolver with its heretical rear sight is of adequate use, but it's generally only a weapon of the absolute last resort. One thing that I do find rather interesting about the Alien universe is that it actually has Second Amendment support. You find on one random terminal that when humanity went to space, it actually brought gun rights with it, which is a rather surprising development to say the least. Then you got the Stun Prod. It is a decent enough one-hit stealth weapon on humans, which I used a grand total of once on the bloody humies. It is also supposed to let you stun a working Joe and allow you to wail on them with your wrench. But I never got that to work. Every time I tried, I got killed. And speaking of the wrench, you can bash humies in the head with it, but you will never need to outside of one. Count 'em, one instant. Then you have the most effective weapon in the game, the Flammenwerfer, and this is the only weapon that is even remotely useful against the Xeno. It can't kill it, but it can drive it away, and this will buy you time to not die, for a little bit at least. It also warms the ice-cold human enemies, much to their chagrin. You then get the Hand of Sigma, the shotgun. This is good for taking on working Joes, but is less useful against armored working Joes, as these must be dispatched with the holy bolter of the Emperor. The bolt gun is a single-shot weapon found late game that allows you to one-shot even armored androids. All told, the weapons in this game work, but will still not put you on even footing with your foes. The crafting system is well thought out and encourages exploration. You can craft health kits, and this is pretty much the only way you can heal in the game, as med kits that you pick up are very few and far between. And by very few, I mean in the first half of the game, I think I found a grand total of one. Throughout the game, you can collect blueprints to build a bunch of good Batman-style devices. The pipe bomb is quite good against androids, and the noisemaker will distract humans here and there to let you pass. As this game requires a lot of precise movements, the controls need to be top bloody tier, and thankfully, they are top bloody tier, be they with the keyboard and mouse or the controller. I played this entire game with an old Xbox 360 controller, and the game plays quite well with it, and all the buttons are well mapped, and I quite preferred the analog movement with the joysticks to the more traditional keyboard and mouse.
In order to immerse oneself into a survival horror game, the game must look as good as it plays.
Alien Isolation has a graphical style that is reminiscent of First Encounter Assault Recon. The levels look amazing and are near photorealistic. The people, on the other hand, look like Hot Toys collectibles. The Xenomorph looks beautiful, but the tail loves to glitch out, thus making the Xenomorph look kind of hilarious at times. The levels are nothing less than Izmir quality in terms of graphics. Just look at that bloody fusion reactor. It's positively groin-grabbingly transcendent. And there is not one area in the game that does not look positively amazing. The game's art design follows that of the 1970s. The computers are green screen, and there are reel-to-reel computers to be found, and everything is that classic 70s beige. The shadow work is great as well, but the game will never get quite as dark as Doom 3 or Quake 4, so you will never really be in danger of running out of batteries. The design for Ripley is quite good, and you can see a bit of the family resemblance. The footage we're looking at here is from the PC version of the game, and I'm running it maxed out at 2K, and it looks pretty good in 2K, but it appears that the game was optimized for 1080p, as some of the texture work looks kinda crappy, scaled up so high. I got 60 FPS throughout, and the game had very fast loading times, even on a magnetic platter drive, something which is most appreciated since you will be restarting a lot in this game. I only got a few crashes to desktop, and these occurred only when the Xenomorph killed me. One aspect of the game that is kind of annoying is the full motion video cutscenes. These definitely were scaled down for the PC version, and they feel very choppy, and I believe they only run at about 30 frames per second. But other than that, the game looks excellent. That sound design is every bit as sexy as the graphics. In a game like this, sound design plays a big role in creating a very creepy atmosphere, and it also plays a big role in spotting where that bloody Xeno is. You got the creepy Xeno stomps, you got the banging about in the vents, and you gotta pay attention to both in order to make it across the hallway with all your bits intact. The Xeno is as scary as ever with its hisses and growls, and the Working Joes have a really creepy monotone to them, and they also say some very creepy things as well. The weapons all sound great, and even though this is a survival horror game, the shoddy sounds like the Hammer of Talos. Even if the Hammer of Talos can do absolutely nothing against the might of the Xenomorph. The various explosions and jump scare sounds are also of high fidelity. Ripley is voiced well, and the actress can really sound confident and scared, and has a great emotional range. The dude who played Gorman comes back and plays a rather incompetent marshal, but he only puts in an adequate performance. Despite not having any real standout performances, the VA work is still immersive, and the game never feels cheap, but it does feel more like a TV movie rather than a pure cinema film. In a game like this, music is as key as sound and graphics, and the soundtrack does not disappoint. It is well mixed and sets the mood quite well, and is very much in the style of the first film, and has some very good 70s highlights. The music sometimes though will glitch out and ruin the mood. Sometimes nothing at all will be happening and the orchestra is going nuts. Sometimes I would like the score to back off a bit. There are instances where you are hiding from Big Papa Xenomorph and the orchestra is just going crazy, and I feel like it would be creepier if the orchestra would just shut up and let the creepiness of the scene play out. The soundtrack works well within the game, but like with the first film's music, you will never find yourself listening to this music outside of the work in which it appears. The graphics, the sound, the music, all balance with each other and enhance the immersion of the gameplay to give you an experience that will have you on edge until the credits roll.
The story for Alien Isolation is absolutely excellent, and the best way to describe it is an epic journey.
Okay, that is a rather charitable way of saying that this is a game that is fairly long and has more endings than Stargate SG-1. Just when you think the game is over, boom, 2 more hours. I prefer to liken the game to the classic rock song In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. That is an 18-minute rock song that is awesome to listen to from start to finish. This is a game that never wavers in quality, and from start to finish, the game is fun and the game is satisfying. So with all that in mind, get a 55-gallon drum of popcorn, a 55-gallon drum of water, and get comfy, cause we're in for a long, bloody haul. The game begins with Amanda Ripley, aka Ellen Ripley's daughter, getting hired by the company Weyland-Yutani, and I'm gonna be nerdy right here. In Alien, it's technically called Weyland-Yutani. Moving on to something people actually care about. She is told by a company rep that a ship found in the Stromo's flight recorder and that Weyland-Yutani wants to pick it up from Sevastopol Station. The rep does not give any other reason for Ripley to be there other than closure. Ripley takes her up on the offer, and she is still holding out hope that her mother might be found. The game starts up with some really good immersion. Instead of just cutscenes to the start of the game, you actually get to walk around the ship transporting you to Sevastopol Station, and you get to interact with a few items here and there. The ship is called the Torrens, and wouldn't you know it, but it just so happens to be an incrementally improved model of a Class M Starfreighter. What's cool here is the fact that the game does go for some realism and doesn't have the Torrens just land or dock easily. Since the station is heavily damaged, there is no place to dock, and thus it's time for a really dangerous spacewalk. With the sheer danger involved, you would think that the synthetic named Samuels would just go and get something safer set up. But no, you have the mechanic, the legal rep named Taylor, and the synth Samuels all spacewalk across.
Now is as good a time as any to mention that Alien Isolation got a book, and that book is 100% crap.
The book was written by Keith DeCandido and turns the strong and resilient Ripley into an insecure girl with daddy issues and turns her into kind of a bitch too. The spacewalk scene is a bit different in the book. In the game, Ripley is supportive. In the book, she's dismissive of the rather green Taylor. And now, let's never speak of it again because it only gets worse from there. As you would expect, a piece of space junk separates the team and Ripley is left alone and isolated. isolated. She legitimately sounds scared, but bears up well. In this part of the game, you're always expecting something to pop out and attack, but that attack never comes until you open this door and Axl Rose shows up. And initially he acts kind of nuts to Ripley, but is able to be calmed down after Ripley tells him that GNR rocks harder than Black Sabbath.
Now, we non-crazy people know for a fact that Black Sabbath rocks way harder than GNR, and that Welcome to the Jungle is overplayed garbage.
He serves up some good exposition and is quite a remarkable character. As you play through the game, most of the humans that you encounter will instantly be hostile, cause, well, they're all nuts. Sure, Axl here might be a bit twitchy, but compared to them, he is positively the paragon of sanity, and one can draw from this that Axl was actually a pretty well-adjusted and cool dude before the Xenomorph showed up. He gives you a flashlight and helps you get around the, what TV Tropes calls, paranorax.
I prefer the simpler term, bastards.
Alas, all good things come to an end, and Axl is tail-spiked by King Bastard himself. He is one of the most tragic deaths on the station, as he is one of the only people to actually give a damn and try to help Ripley. Rip escapes the Xenomorph, and thus the game begins. You have a bit of a brick wall to go through. In this part of the game, you literally have a wrench, a flashlight, and just a little bit of pocket lint. And your first enemies are some bastards. They have ranged attack that do good damage, and this part of the game will cause controller smashing rage unless you have good stealth skills. I don't have good stealth skills. Your best bet is to kite them and then sneak into a vent and hide until all but one is left in the room looking for you, and bash what's left of their rotted brain to mush. After the bashy, you pick up an access tuner, and now your mission is to find some batteries for it. This game is still creepy because you still don't know if Big Papa Bastard is out there or not. Once you find the power cell, you also find the Nostromo flight recorder.
Alas, someone shut it down during the middle of a software update and bricked it.
Ripley shows some really good emotion here and freaks out a bit, but composes herself and moves on. You will find Nostromo logs here and there throughout the game in hard to reach places. After getting the tuner, you get caught up in a security lockdown and...
Can we stay in the cutscene, please?
This is genuinely terrifying, since it all takes place from a first-person perspective. You finally feel that all-encompassing terror of being that close to a xenomorph, especially when all you've got is a .357 Magnum revolver and a bloody wrench, neither of which will do fuck or all against the midnight black beast from beyond the stars. Escaping the room is extra tense since you don't have the motion tracker yet, meaning you have to listen to where King Bastard the First is. You eventually escape and make it to relative safety. Your objective now is to establish comms with the Taurans, and only a few hours in, you can guess that it doesn't work. And then, you get introduced to your next enemy type, the Working Joes.
Working hose, am I right?
OnlyFans aside, it is best to avoid getting the androids to ejaculate white liquid upon you, as you have limited offensive options and they tank damage. You will have your motion tracker by now, which will help a bit with the stealth. Your objective now is to try and communicate with Samuels. You manage it, and then you have to escape to an elevator to meet up with him. I could have Corvoed it up, or I could just, yo-jo it past the Joes. It took me a few tries, but eventually I managed it. Now, you were given a new task. Get some medical supplies for Taylor. This seems simple, right?
Every game has that guitar solo. Every game has that one moment, that one level that stands out above all the others. San Cristobal is the greatest level in all of Alien Isolation and one of the standout experiences in the survival horror genre as a whole.
You got the king bastard after you and you have no means of fending him off. This level is long and hard and save points are few and far between. It is here that you find Xeno Zero, the poor cretin that got bursted, and as you play the game you learn just how tragic Xeno Zero's fate really is. Escaping the San Cristobal medical facility is just as harrowing as the level. You have to trigger an emergency evacuation. You have to throw a bunch of switches and things of this nature, all the while avoiding the king bastard in addition to avoiding a working hoe. Once you trigger the emergency evacuation, it still ain't over. You then have to get to the goddamn exit, and that surely isn't easy. Now you have the whole base going nuts, so hearing King Bastard is even harder than usual, and then some of these little bastards show up. Oh, I do love it when they get nommed though. I mean, peace to all, and to all, oh fuck it. When you avoid the Xeno and then get shot by a dumbass, it's so satisfying to see them contribute to the local ecosystem. You will need to memorize where to go, and you will need to determine the most efficient path possible. You will still get nommed, but little by little, you will get closer and closer to victory.
Or not.
This will be the first of the oh shit moments. If you haven't played this game before or looked up a walkthrough, you are fucked here. And you will of course lose a bunch of gameplay. So here is what you have to do. Climb up this ladder in the middle of the flames. So obvious. Once you do this, you finally escape hell. The rest of the game is actually kind of a cakewalk from here. You fix an elevador and then meet up with Gorman's grandfather. He is about as ineffectual as his grandson will be, and Big Rip takes command and meets up with a shipmaster named Marlowe. He is the owner/operator of the starship Anisadora, and the cret that started up this whole plot. The game loads you into a walking simulator wherein you take command of Marlowe himself and go through his adventure to find the jockey ship. Now, as walking sims go, this isn't too bad, as you have to try a little bit to figure out where to go, and this is a very immersive walking sim, and it inspires awe of the highest order. To get this close to the jockey ship is nothing short of amazing. However, I have to say, it is a bit humorous to see the rather minimalist egg chamber turned into something much more modern and huge. As you would expect, a member of the Anisadora's crew gets facehugged, and that member just so happens to have been Marlowe's wife. Uh-oh. Back to the present day, Marlowe is being held in lockup by Gorman's grandfather, Marshal Waits. Marlowe's ship is still out there, but he refuses to bring it to the station since he wants to be let out of his cell first. Ripley cannot convince him to give her the code and thus heads out to do battle with the Xeno. You finally get your Flammenwerfer, and you can potentially get the Xeno to run, but don't bet your life on it. Your objective now is to try and capture the foul Xeno and potentially dispose of it. You are now on the path to the Xeno's destruction. You first try and trap it, and this has another great oh shit moment. You gotta power up the Space Commodore pet, and you, in real time, have to activate a door lock using the computer. It's as hair-raising as it sounds. The trap doesn't work, and you have to try again. This leads you through some more harrowing corridors, and one wherein you can get tricked by the Xeno and killed. I saw this bloody move on YouTube before playing the game, and the king busted still got me. You eventually lure the Xeno into an isolated lab, and then...
Don't fucking do this to me!
This is yet another oh shite moment, as you have to escape the now blown up lab, all the while avoiding the Xeno. This segment is not as difficult as it might otherwise appear, as there are plenty of hiding spaces, and it'll only take you a few deaths to finally escape. You blow yourself out of the airlock and return to the Sevastopol station, so you would think that an epic conclusion like that would be the end of the game, right? That was just the first half of the game. Like the song Inagata Davida, the game does not actually lag here. In any other game, I would be saying that this is where the game gets boring, or this is where the game loses its appeal. But like that song, the devs keep up the thrills, despite you killing the xenomorph. But the game never reaches the heights of San Cristobal. It's quite a unique sensation when you return to the station. The xenomorph's dead, and you lose a lot of the fear you had earlier. You face down a xenomorph, a few little bastards and some working hoes are nothing. So where before you had to sneak through each and every corridor listening to every sound, now you get to girl run through corridors with absolute impunity. So now what are you supposed to do?
Surprise! Machine uprising.
The working hoes attack and begin going Arnie on everyone. They had already started up with this earlier in the game, but now they are all hostile and they become your enemy. But you get the Hand of Talos, so just rip and tear. You now have the objective of trying to take down the Skynet Jr. named Apollo. If you read the various emails, you will learn that the androids are neither self-aware nor are they independent entities. Rather, they are all controlled by Apollo, and if you take it down, you take them all down. Marshall Waits and most of the other survivors get slaughtered sans one guy, who will become your new Cortana stand-in. But now, you are more or less isolated. You do get to meet up with Samuels and assist in his mission to talk to Apollo. This requires a bunch of juice for some reason, and you get another oh shit moment when you have to flip switches in the right order or die. Apollo tries to take over Samuels, but he resists long enough to help you out and sets you on the path to the Apollo core. Once you make it to the outskirts of Apollo, you have to leave all your weapons, sans your wrench and stun prod behind. And to make matters worse, you have to deal with some armored working hoes, and they will be immune to even the pipe bomb.
Now, I, of course, used the greatest ninjutsu tactic of them all. I fucking legged it.
You finally figure out what is going on when you enter the AI core that looks epically like the AI core from Alien. You learn that Weyland Yutani bought the station and uploaded killallhumi.bat to the station, and that's what caused the working hoes to kill everyone. You cannot shut down the AI, and you are then charged with investigating the reactor.
Then, the game starts up its second guitar solo.
Surprise! There's a hive of xenomorphs. Oh my god, this level is damn scary to say the least. But since it's not as hard as San Cristobal, it's more flash than substance. But what a flash it is! It is by far the second best level in the game, and certainly the most memorable. Your objective here is to re-Kafooble the Energy Motron, or, whatever.
What is this, bloody Freebird? The game starts up its third guitar solo!
So not only do you have to re-Kafooble the Energy Motron, but then after leaving the reactor core, you then have to repower the flux capacitor, and holy crap, is this a fuck awesome level. You have to flip switches and hack firewalls, all the while being attacked by working hoes. And by this point, you have little ammo, and there are a bunch of these bastards. So legging it is a valid strategy. And finally, you get the reactor updated with the latest drivers, and
And now, ladies and gentlemen,
it's still not over. This feels like the game should, really be over by this point. You kill the Xenos and escape, right? Right? Nope, you still got another quarter of the game left, and it really feels like a drum solo. But if you're not trying to record the footage for a review that is under a time constraint, this will be great news since the game quality does not dip at all. So you learn that a ship is nearby, and thus you take a short-range shuttle to it. Now where the Torrens is, about that. So you get to the Marlow, and there's a bit of exploration, and surprise, facehugger, that insta-killed me, you bastard. You meet up with Marlowe himself, and he shows you a message recorded by Ripley. The message itself is rather perplexing. Part of it sounds like she is talking to a kid, but then she uses the term alien creature, which just seems out of place to me. Marlowe is also holding Taylor at very poor gunpoint. Taylor had the mission to bring the creature back, but since she has an IQ over 20, she realized how dangerous it was and broke with her orders. Marlowe was supposed to give her data on it, but he rebuffs her because he wants to destroy the station. A good idea, but he wants to kamikaze to destroy it. Needless to say, he is not firing on all space cylinders, and by Sigmar did this dude not show any competency with a firearm and gets his head bashed in for it. But before the bashy, he sets the reactor of the Marlowe to blow. So you have to flip the switches just...
Go with!
You stop that explosion, but it's too late to save the ship, and the ship blows up anyway, just slower. You escape and, well...
We've got company. Season security just came through. Guns in hand, not friendly. I had to hide under a desk.
What do they want?
Oh, won't you come with me? Walk this land.
Another good stopping point down, more game to go. So the Marlowe has been exploded, and thus has caused Sevastopol to lose its orbit stabilizer, and thus it's about to crash into the gas giant. So now you have to figure out how to contact the Torrens. It's never as easy as just flipping a switch, rather you have to sneak past more Xenos and Bastards and working hose. But eventually, you get this big ass transmission dish aligned, and you get a message to the Torrens. But it can't dock, because why could it? First, you gotta fight through some more epic levels that get really quite hard again, especially this one here. You have little room to maneuver, and getting to the next save station becomes a mission in and of itself again. You finally get the Torrens docked for the station, and then just as you're about to put on a spacesuit... Alright game, this had better be the best levels in the world!
You got lucky.
So finally, you get out on the docking arm, and you still have gameplay. You have to disconnect the ship, and the disconnection is just like the self-destruct sequence from Alien. Then, the Sevastopol crashes into the gas giant, taking all the fell foes with it. Alas, Rip just can't catch a break, as when she arrives on the Torrens, turns out there is a king bastard on that ship, and Ripley blows it and her out the airlock. She gets scanned by a passing ship, and the game cuts to black. This ending is nothing short of exquisite. At first, I hated it and was like, is that it? I expected something more bombastic, or at least something that ripped off Alien 1. I then thought that there was some sort of post-credit scene, but there wasn't one. And then I thought there might have been some sort of hidden ending, but there wasn't. Then I analyzed the ending and realized that it's actually pretty good. Exquisite even. The devs decided to be daring and not copy what had come before, and they also decided to leave the ending up to the player. Did Ripley get rescued by the passing ship, or is she doomed to die alone in the cold of space? For me, I think she was picked up by that passing ship and held on ice until Ripley the First was picked up, and in this continuity they meet up sometime after Aliens and team up for some co-op alien killing fun. By the great Telos, Ysmir, Space Dragon, and Sigmar, was this a well-crafted game. This was a complete game. Everything from the graphics to the writing was complete. Not one thing was out of place, and not one aspect was better or worse than the others. The game was 100% consistent. There were a few spikes of quality, but there were never any valleys. From moment one, you were given a top quality experience. This is a game that will keep you coming back year after year and decade after decade. As for Amanda Ripley herself, this is another cool character to add to the FPS pantheon, and I get a mental image of Duke trying to hit on her, only to be rejected. We all know there is only one FPS character that she would go for.
My elf Corvus.
She is a good example of a character that has inner strength and resilience. She can emote and does so throughout the game. She is not above the sheer terror-inducing nature of the situation she finds herself in, and yet despite her fear, she perseveres regardless. She is well skilled, but the game gives a logical reason for her to be so. She is never a Mary Sue, and she actually cares about the other characters in the game and is never callous towards them, even when some act like cretins towards her. All told, she does her mother proud.
Now that all the noobs have gone out to go buy the game to experience it for themselves, it is time to talk about one major factor, and that factor is, damn that girl skinny. I mean, really, Rip, she needs to eat a couple more soy burgers, because goddamn, those arms are like bloody sticks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Alien Isolation is likely to become like Deus Ex 1. Every time somebody mentions it, it gets reinstalled somewhere. It is a game that is due to stand the test of time, and I cannot recommend it enough. And so I am General Lotz, wishing you good Resident Evil 1, and good Outlast, or whatever makes you happy.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and if you can, please consider supporting me on Patreon so that I can continue bringing you this great content.